Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we are learning about one of the most powerful and unforgettable artists in modern history, Frida Kahlo. This story is for Level 3 learners, so I will use richer vocabulary and more complex sentence structures than our beginner stories. Let's begin. Magdalena Carmen Frida Kahlo y Calderón was born on July 6, 1907, in Coyoacán, a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Mexico City. Her father, Wilhelm Kahlo, was a German photographer who had immigrated to Mexico years earlier, eventually marrying Frida's mother, Matilde. From her father, Frida inherited a fascination with images and self-expression. From her mother, she inherited a fierce, unshakable determination that would define nearly every chapter of her extraordinary life. Frida's childhood was already marked by hardship before she ever picked up a paintbrush. At the age of 6, she contracted polio, a viral disease that left her right leg noticeably thinner and weaker than her left for the rest of her life. Other children sometimes mocked her because of this difference, calling her cruel nicknames as she limped through the schoolyard. Rather than allowing this pain to define her, young Frida became known instead for her sharp wit, her fearless personality, and her refusal to be treated as fragile or lesser because of her physical difference. As a teenager, Frida was accepted into the National Preparatory School in Mexico City, one of the most prestigious schools in the entire country. At the time, only 35 female students attended among thousands of male classmates, and Frida quickly built a reputation for her outspoken opinions and rebellious spirit. She joined a small group of politically minded students who debated philosophy, literature, and revolutionary politics late into the evening, and she fell deeply in love with one of the group's charismatic leaders, a young man named Alejandro Gomez Arias. Friends from this period later described Frida as magnetic and unforgettable, someone who commanded attention in any room she entered, long before anyone in her life imagined she would one day become a painter at all. It was also during this period that Frida first encountered a man who would eventually change the entire course of her life. The famous Mexican muralist, Diego Rivera, had been commissioned to paint an enormous mural on the school's campus. Frida would often stand quietly nearby, watching him work for hours at a time, fascinated by his enormous talent, even as she reportedly joked to a friend that she intended to have his child someday. Neither of them could have predicted in that moment exactly how intertwined their futures would soon become. On September 17, 1925, when Frida was only 18 years old, everything changed in a single, devastating instant. She and Alejandro were riding home together on a wooden bus when it collided violently with an oncoming streetcar. The impact was catastrophic. The wooden bus splintered apart beneath them, and in the terrifying chaos, a metal handrail from the vehicle pierced directly through Frida's pelvis. Her spinal column fractured in 3 separate places. Her collarbone, several ribs, and her right leg were all broken as well, with her right foot crushed almost beyond recognition. Doctors at the hospital initially doubted whether Frida would survive the night. Remarkably, she did survive, though the accident permanently altered the trajectory of her entire life. She spent weeks in the hospital, followed by months confined to her bed at home, wrapped tightly in a rigid, full-body plaster cast designed to help her shattered spine heal correctly. The physical pain was immense and unrelenting, but perhaps even more difficult was the crushing boredom and isolation of being trapped inside a body that suddenly refused to cooperate with even the simplest movements. It was during this long, painful recovery that Frida's artistic journey truly began. Her parents, hoping to give their daughter something meaningful to occupy her restless mind, attached a specially designed easel to her bed and installed a large mirror directly above her, positioned so she could see her own reflection while lying flat on her back. Unable to paint landscapes or other people from her confined position, Frida instead began painting herself, staring directly into that mirror for hours at a time, transforming her own reflection into her most frequent, most honest, and ultimately most famous subject. "I paint myself because I am so often alone," Frida once explained, "and because I am the subject I know best." Over the following months and years, painting slowly transformed from a simple distraction into Frida's genuine passion and eventual life's purpose. Her ambition to become a doctor, a dream she had held since childhood, quietly gave way to an entirely different calling, one that would eventually make her name known across the entire world. In 1928, several years after the accident, Frida reconnected with Diego Rivera, showing him several of her paintings and requesting his honest, professional opinion. Diego was immediately struck by the raw emotional power and technical skill visible in her work, despite her lack of formal artistic training. Their professional relationship quickly deepened into something far more personal, and in 1929, Frida and Diego married in a modest ceremony. Frida was 22 years old. Diego was 42, already one of the most celebrated and controversial artists in all of Mexico. Frida's father reportedly described their unlikely pairing as a marriage between an elephant and a dove, referring humorously to Diego's large, heavy frame alongside Frida's much smaller, more delicate stature. But their marriage, from nearly its very beginning, proved to be considerably more complicated and turbulent than any simple joke could capture. Diego was famously unfaithful throughout their relationship, engaging in numerous affairs that caused Frida tremendous, repeated heartbreak. Frida herself later wrote in her private journal, "I suffered 2 grave accidents in my life, one in which a streetcar knocked me down. The other accident is Diego." Despite the profound pain their relationship frequently caused her, Frida and Diego shared an undeniable creative and intellectual bond that neither of them could easily walk away from. They traveled together extensively throughout the United States, where Diego received prestigious commissions to paint large murals in cities including Detroit and San Francisco. During their time in Detroit, Frida suffered a devastating miscarriage, an intensely painful experience made even more difficult by her earlier accident, which had permanently damaged her ability to carry a pregnancy safely to full term. She channeled this profound grief directly into her artwork, producing an unflinchingly honest and deeply personal painting titled Henry Ford Hospital, depicting her own suffering with a rawness rarely seen in art at that time. Throughout the 1930s, Frida continued developing her own unmistakable artistic style, one that blended elements of Mexican folk tradition, vivid symbolic imagery, and unflinching personal honesty about pain, identity, and womanhood. Although she frequently rejected the label, many art critics eventually categorized her striking, dreamlike imagery within the broader surrealist movement, comparing her work to prominent European artists of the era. Frida herself famously disagreed with this characterization, insisting firmly, "I never painted dreams. I painted my own reality." In 1939, after years of mounting tension, repeated infidelity, and emotional exhaustion on both sides, Frida and Diego finally divorced. Remarkably, their powerful connection proved impossible to sever completely, and the following year, in 1940, they remarried, choosing once again to build a life together despite everything that had come before. Their relationship for the remainder of Frida's life continued to be defined by this same complicated mixture of deep affection, mutual artistic respect, jealousy, and considerable personal pain. Frida's health, meanwhile, continued deteriorating steadily throughout her adult life, a lasting consequence of her catastrophic accident decades earlier. She endured more than 30 separate surgical operations over the course of her lifetime, attempting repeatedly to address ongoing complications involving her spine, pelvis, and right leg. She frequently wore rigid medical corsets, some crafted from plaster, others from steel or leather, in a continuous effort to support her fragile spine and manage her constant, unrelenting pain. Rather than hiding this suffering from the world, Frida transformed it directly into powerful, unforgettable art. Her painting, titled The Broken Column, depicts her own body split open down the center, revealing a shattered ancient column standing in place of her damaged spine, her skin pierced by dozens of small, sharp nails, her expression simultaneously anguished and remarkably composed. This willingness to portray physical and emotional suffering with such unflinching honesty became one of the defining, revolutionary qualities of her entire artistic legacy. By the 1940s, Frida's reputation as a serious artist in her own right, entirely separate from her famous husband's towering shadow, had grown considerably within Mexico and increasingly abroad as well. Her work was exhibited in Paris, where prominent European artists praised her originality and technical skill. In 1953, Frida finally received her first major solo exhibition within Mexico itself. By this point, her health had declined so severely that doctors strongly advised her against attending her own opening. Frida refused to miss the moment entirely. She arranged to have her entire four-poster bed transported directly into the gallery, arriving by ambulance and greeting stunned, delighted guests while lying comfortably in her own bed, surrounded by the very paintings that had defined her extraordinary, painful, resilient life. Frida Kahlo passed away on July 13, 1954, at her family home, La Casa Azul, in Coyoacán, the very same neighborhood where her remarkable story had first begun. She was only 47 years old. The documented medical cause of death was a pulmonary embolism, though some biographers have speculated about additional contributing factors, given her decades of declining health and the sheer physical toll of more than 30 surgeries. In her final diary entry, written shortly before her death, Frida wrote hauntingly, "I hope the exit is joyful, and I hope never to return." During her own lifetime, Frida never achieved anywhere near the level of fame enjoyed by her husband Diego. It was only decades after her death that her reputation began growing dramatically, eventually surpassing even Diego's own considerable legacy in many respects. Art historians often point out the irony of this shift, noting that Diego himself always insisted, even during his own lifetime, that Frida was the more original and important artist between the two of them, a claim few people outside their close circle fully believed at the time. By the late 20th century and into the 21st, Frida Kahlo had become an internationally recognized cultural icon, celebrated not only for her extraordinary artistic talent, but also for her fearless honesty about disability, female identity, cultural pride, and the complicated, often painful nature of love itself. Today, Frida's childhood home has been transformed into a museum, drawing visitors from across the entire world, eager to walk through the same rooms where she once painted her own reflection, hour after hour, transforming personal suffering into universal, deeply moving art. Visitors can still see her original bed, complete with the mirror mounted above it, along with her wheelchair, her plaster corsets, and many of the traditional Mexican dresses she wore, both to express cultural pride and to conceal the physical braces and medical devices hidden underneath. Her unmistakable image, instantly recognizable by her distinctive unibrow and elaborate traditional Mexican hairstyles, now appears on merchandise, murals, and artwork across the globe, a powerful symbol of resilience, authenticity, and unapologetic self-expression. Frida Kahlo's story teaches us several important lessons. First, profound suffering, while never something to seek out deliberately, can sometimes become a powerful, unexpected source of creative purpose and meaning. Second, true authenticity, painting or living exactly as you truly are, rather than how others expect you to be, often resonates more powerfully and lasts longer than work created simply to please others. Third, physical limitations do not have to limit a person's impact, ambition, or lasting legacy. Fourth, complicated relationships, filled with both genuine love and genuine pain, are simply part of the honest, complex reality of human life, not something to be hidden away or denied. Now it's time to learn vocabulary from today's story. Catastrophic means causing sudden, extreme damage or suffering. Example, the bus accident was catastrophic, breaking her spine in several places. Unrelenting means continuing without becoming weaker or stopping. Example, she endured unrelenting pain throughout much of her adult life. Infidelity means unfaithfulness within a romantic relationship. Example, Diego's repeated infidelity caused Frida tremendous heartbreak. Turbulent means full of conflict, confusion, or sudden change. Example, their marriage was famously turbulent from the very beginning. Miscarriage means the loss of a pregnancy before a baby can survive on its own. Example, Frida suffered a devastating miscarriage while living in Detroit. Unflinching means showing courage and honesty without avoiding difficulty. Example, her paintings offered an unflinching look at her own suffering. Deteriorate means to become gradually worse over time. Example, her health continued to deteriorate throughout her life. Resilience means the ability to recover from difficulty and keep moving forward. Example, her life became a powerful symbol of resilience. Authenticity means being genuinely and honestly yourself without pretending. Example, her work is celebrated for its raw authenticity. Legacy means the lasting impact a person leaves behind after their life ends. Example, her legacy grew enormously after her death. Commission means a formal request or job to create a specific piece of work. Example, Diego received a commission to paint a mural in Detroit. Icon means a person who is widely admired and represents a larger idea or movement. Example, Frida Kahlo became a global cultural icon. Try to use these words in your own sentences. This will help you remember them. Now, let's practice speaking together. Repeat after me at a natural pace. Frida survived a catastrophic accident at 18 years old. She began painting during her long, painful recovery. She married the famous muralist Diego Rivera in 1929. Their marriage was passionate but deeply turbulent. She transformed her physical suffering into powerful art. Her most famous subject was always her own reflection. She never achieved fame during most of her own lifetime. Her reputation grew enormously after her death. Today, she is celebrated as a global cultural icon. Her honesty and resilience continue to inspire people worldwide. Practice these sentences a few times. This will help your pronunciation and your fluency at this level. Thank you so much for listening to this story today. I hope it helped you practice your English while learning about one of history's most powerful and unforgettable artists. Now, I have a few questions for you. What part of Frida Kahlo's story moved you the most? Do you think great suffering can genuinely lead to great art? Or is that idea sometimes romanticized too much? What does authenticity mean to you in your own life? Please write your answers in the comments below. I would love to read them. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more English learning stories. Take care, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.